Today, every day, small cap investors visit Agoracom knowing this is the day to discover the world's next great company, to have their dreams come true. That's why I take to the open road, to find them, to tell their stories, to engage them, to bring them to life, because they want to connect with you from your office, your phone, your home, anywhere. Agoracom, find your dream.
Welcome to CEO Interviews, a production of Agoracom in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives about what's going on at their companies. With us today, I'm happy to have for the first time under his new company, Alan Lone. He's president and CEO of IntellaEquity. The company trades on the CSE under the stock symbol IEQ. IntellaEquity is a brand new listed company, so a lot of you may not know that name. It's a venture capital firm that's focused on investments primarily in tech, artificial intelligence, blockchain sectors, that kind of technology. More than just lip service, the company has about a $2 million market cap with approximately $12 million of investments sitting on its books already, which presents a remarkable opportunity to purchase the company invested assets at a substantial discount to net asset value. Alan, welcome to the show.
Hi, George. How are you? Thanks.
Hey, I'm good. Congratulations on the listing, but more importantly, congratulations on the first deal officially having turned out to be a successful one. You sold Fox Tech for $21.5 million in a combination of securities and future royalties. That means you're sitting on 47.5 million shares of Sensor Tech. How does that feel? What does that mean to your shareholders?
Well, it's great news for us. This is, like you said, our first deal with Sensor Tech and the amalgamation of Fox Tech with Sensor. I look at it as such. Augusta is the past. The new sort of version of what we're doing is an entity called IntellaEquity. I look at it as three sets. One being, or business units. One being Sensor Tech, which I'm reiterating, we own 47.5 million shares in Sensor Tech, a publicly traded company, symbol SENS. I'm doing a little advertising here. That deal is just for the $9.5 million valuation, besides the debenture debt we own as IntellaEquity, in terms of financing the past Fox Tech operations, which is around $3 million, by the way.
Yep, pretty substantial.
And that's considerable, a considerable amount. We'll probably do a deal where it converts to equity, and the royalty part of it. Now, the royalty, a lot of people sort of say, oh, 10 years and payout. It depends what events take place at that moment or given period of time and how active, but we always have the option of renegotiating that part of taking equity stake again in Sensor Tech as it grows. So in other words, if we get paid out $500,000 next year and we decide we just want to pack it in and earn the rest all by converting it to equity, we could do that too. So there's still great value sitting behind the 8 ball there. The second side, or the latter side of it, is the private side of what we do with IntellaEquity, and that being the Marcon International part of the business, which is the goods and services supplier contractor with the U.S. government, mainly in oil and gas companies. A private company, $3 million probably roughly in sales for this year, closing. And it's been in business for quite a while, very steady. We don't have a value to it because it's private, right, and we haven't gone out and hired an evaluator that costs an arm and a leg. So we're sort of holding tight on valuation. We're just putting no fair value on it right now on our current assets list. Paragon blockchain, which we started this past year, and as you know, we've advertised the fact that we have signed non-binding LOIs with 2 healthcare blockchain companies. With the overwhelming work and being busy just putting these deals together, we haven't done a lot of due diligence, but we're about to sort of consummate what we do going forward, be it these two or others that we haven't really gotten to the LOI stage, but we will announce as time flies by. The other part of IntellaEquity is looking at the future, going forward, what we invest in the future. And we're continuously looking. There are opportunities, and we're looking for, basically the technology kind of deal or something relating to oil and gas, but maybe on the technology side, maybe artificial intelligence, blockchain. And we're wide open. Again, we got to be agnostic when it comes to these kinds of deals.
Right, and that's the overall picture there.
That's the overall picture of who we are today.
Let me go back to the subtext. So what I really love there is you actually put out on Twitter. You actually put out the actual image of the stock certificate,
Yes.
which is 47.5 million shares.
Correct.
You did something great because you only have a hold period of 4 months on those, as opposed to 1.5 year escrow. So your shareholders are benefiting from that immensely already because they'll be able to benefit sooner. So the question I have for you is this: I mean, you're just doing the basic math, right? Those 47.5 million shares, the stock's trading at 15, 16 cents, right? So you're talking about a market. You're talking about a market valuation of $8-9 million somewhere in there, right? So which is far above your current market cap, about 2 and change. What are your plans for those securities? Do you keep them all in house? Do you return some or all of those to current shareholders? Either way, shareholders win. But what are you thinking right now?
So here's what it is. If I want to just draw it out a little bit more, shareholders own IntellaEquity, and they basically own all the shares and all the assets that IntellaEquity owns. So indirectly, they own everything. So their buy-in today of IEQ at 7-8 cents at a valuation of $2.2 million. They're buying in at 2.25, and they've got an asset worth at least $8 million if we're talking about liquid assets that are traded on the market, not counting for all the other sides of the business.
Right.
Having said that, I thought it was a great idea a few months ago, which we did an interview, and we've done many interviews in the past with you and done some press releases, and we've clearly stated that our first tranche of releasing shares to our shareholders would be a 25% stake in Sensor, meaning 11 and some million shares will be distributed. The key thing there that I've highlighted then, and I will highlight again, is that the shares could be distributed as a dividend, which is not a great idea because that's taxable, and will probably allow some to have excuses to go out and sell the heck out of the shares, and in retrospect, takes paying off the taxes. Or we do a share capital return or capital return for the typical investment in the company. We've got room to do that. A lot of companies don't have that room. We do. So that requires that the shares, of course, be transferable, which they aren't not now because we have a 4-month hold. And a vote, a special meeting, AGM, a vote to say, yes, we will do that. The shareholders will have to vote for it.
And they'll probably say yes to. They'll probably say yes to it. I'm assuming, right?
Of course,
I don't see why they would say no to that.
I don't think anyone will say no to that. So, again, we've got a little bit of a latent period, I call it, if you're good with physics, and it's going to take till the 4-month period ends. Now, in the meantime, that doesn't mean that we're just sitting on our hands waiting on the 4 months to count off the calendar. We'll do all the necessary things by that time. As far as a lot of questions come across the wires or by email, when is the supposed date of record? And I think we'll get it as close as possible to the release. So I just need to clear that on how we do that. Are we able to release a date prior to having a special meeting and a vote? Are we able to release it prior to having the shares actually being transferable? So these are questions.
Probably around the end of February. It's probably around the end of February.
Yeah. So these questions all pop up, and I don't have the magic wand. We just got off going public with IntellaEquity at the CSE, taking Sensor Tech public. all the heavy lifting. So we're just catching a breather right now to get to the next thing. But we are, this is on the agenda going forward.
But the numbers are great. If you return, you put something out again on social media. If you return just 25% of the stock that you're thinking about, what does that mean in terms of return to investors that are currently that are either current investors or would be buying at these levels?
So at these levels, IntellaEquity is worth 2.2 million, roughly. I'm rounding up the numbers here. 2.2 million, and we're returning 2.2 million in capital or dividends. So it's 100% return on today. If someone buys today, they will, and that now we say that, and there's another whole aspect to it. Now, if Sensor shares go up, the value goes up, and the return is even greater. If unfortunately it goes down, the return of capital is still there, but it might be diminished a little bit.
But as of today, 25% is 100% return to the investors at the end of the day.
Correct. So if I was an outsider, what would I do? I mean, I'm not going to give advice here because I'm not a financial advisor, but if I was an outsider, what would I do? I'll leave that up to you to decide.
Yeah, but it seems to me like an easy decision to make at the end of the day.
It is. It's good value. And that's how a lot of people and investors were asking, how do you crystallize value? That's a way to crystallize value, is spin out a private company, make it public. We own 89% of it, control it, and it's marketable. So when we pass it on, the more we pass on to the shareholder, the less we own of it, of course, but we'd be glad to do so and hopefully create some value. Our stock has been, I mean, no one wants to hide behind their thumb. Our stock has taken a beating because a lot of negative people with very little trading. If you look at how much we traded all year this year to date, it's probably up on the old numbers pre-consolidation, 130 million, of which only 17 million were in the last 3 months. That's when people turn negative. But we've traded a heck of a lot more. A lot of the larger holders, the larger traders were sitting on the sidelines watching where the stock would go, but very little traded after, I'd say, August.
Yeah, and I guess the people who want to get out of the old Augusta, the reverse, they just want to go, probably had some marijuana stock gains. Take some losses, to balance out their tax returns, but that seems to be done now, and on to the new, which is great. So I think you've done a fantastic job, and great that you've been able to pivot in the meantime from an industrial company into this venture capital company.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. What happened in between the time you received listing approved from the CSE and actually listing? Because it seems like there was a downdraft there, some selling going on that didn't seem like it was genuine. So what happened there, and what does that mean for everybody?
So let's roll back. We got final approval from the CSE, and we're supposed to start trading on the 4th of October. And because IntellaEquity is a U.S. corporation, a Delaware corporation, basically, we have to get and listed on the OTC market, FINRA. We have to get DTCC, which is the equivalent of the CDS, the Canadian Depository Trust for the shares. We had to get eligibility from DTCC and get FINRA to sign off on it too, which is FINRA basically runs the OTC market as a U.S. company. Canadian companies don't face that. That took a while, and there was documentation to be forwarded on to DTCC and to FINRA and the whole 9 yards. So in the meantime, although we were listed and approved and eligible in Canada, as a U.S. company, we were still not eligible in the U.S., and we were working on seeing that through. They took their time. I mean, we've forwarded everything onto them, but they took their time. In the meantime, we had delisted from the TSX Venture. When you delist from when you delist at the TSX Venture, your symbol drops. The only thing they can fetch for Augusta Industries was our listing in the U.S., FBOP. And it wasn't really showing, for the most part, you'll see a lot of people saying, oh, we're showing our old number of shares with an FBOP symbol. That is the symbol down in OTC. During that time, no one is was or is able to deliver, basically sell shares in Canada. No one had the shares IEQ because the deal was not consummated as far as the rollback or the name change. There is one bank, without naming any names, that for some reason someone hit the wrong button or something, was allowing these trades to go through. So you saw on the 15th, 16th specifically, and 17th of October, a hell of a lot of shares being sold. They were considering that the 4, 5, 6 cents were, or whatever the reading off FBOP at the time, which is our symbol down in the US, pre-consolidation, guys were going, okay, this is now 400% higher than it was a couple of days ago. Let's sell. They sold into the market over 3 point some million up to 4 million total. Not the one bank, but a couple. But the one specific was, neck deep in there. Anyway, to make a long story short, they sold, and now the rollback happened, the name change happened, IEQ lit up, and we started trading in Canada. And up to today, someone out there is suffering by selling more shares than they were able to deliver. In other terms, if you had 50,000 shares in your account and the rollback happened, you only have 5, you're short the difference. You're short.
You end up selling 25,000 shares, you got to deliver 20,000 shares back to the market. That means a forced buy-in, right?
Yes. So right now and I've been posting that on Twitter and telling people, whoever asks me, every day there is a short position, and they're tendering the short position saying, whoever is interested in a buy-in, we're willing to entertain. So the buy-in today is for 1.2 million, for instance. So 1.2 million shares have been sold back then, which crushed the market here and crushed the price of the stock. Because remember, at IEQ, we opened up in the 20s, not down here.
Of course, it did the reverse and all that, and but these people end up selling more stock, or the bank ended up selling more stock than the people had to deliver because they forgot to do the switch. They forgot to do
and they looked at it as an opportunity, and now they aren't able to do so. There'll be a forced buy-in at some point if they don't settle that, because it can't go on forever. If you or I were shorting stock, although we can't short stock at this level, but if you or I were, they give us 3 days and we'd have to deliver. So T+2 or T+3, I'm not sure. And we'd have to deliver. If you recall, you can't really just short and not have money or shares to deliver. So in this case, because they are banks and the big boys are handling that, and I'm assuming they will settle it, or else it'd be a forced buy-in. So that's really a positive. It should have a positive effect on the price of IntellaEquity shares.
So someone out there is scrambling, or a bank is scrambling right now, trying to figure out how do we buy 1.2 million shares into a stock that, quite frankly, I'm looking at the depth right now. The selling is all but dried up now. So there isn't a lot of offers out there.
You can't pick up right now unless there's some big whale of an order. And to sum all that, I think next week should be a week where we see these buying numbers drop. I don't know how they settle them, whether they settle with their customers and do the difference in money or buy back the shares. I don't really know at this point.
Somebody's losing their job, that's for sure. Someone's
got to settle. Someone's got to settle that. So we'll see what happens.
Well, that's good to know. Thanks for clarifying that, because the selling did come in and everyone was surprised, where's this coming from? And now we know that the bank had a fat finger mistake, and they're going to have to cover their clients, I guess, for making that mistake. But at the end of the day, that's going to be a positive for you. We just don't know. We just don't know when. So overall, before we move on, I guess you got to be really happy with the change, and looking forward to acting as a venture capital firm. A lot less friction, a lot less capital costs, expenses, so on and so forth. So, what does the future look for you over the next 12 months?
I think once we, other than doing a distribution on the shares, we're actively looking into venturing out and looking at companies and doing some due diligence and picking up some shares of companies, small or mid-size, maybe private, or even those that are planning on going public, which I would prefer. But that sort of narrows the scope down a little bit. We're open to whether to do a debt deal where we don't get diluted a lot in IntellaEquity, and then using that debt to invest in companies. in the form of a debenture somehow, and then buying shares or doing share for share exchanges, which is a common thing. So these are the sort of ideas that we're looking at. We're going to still stay focused on managing at a distance what we have today in SensorTech and Marcon and Paragon with its blockchain ideas, whether it's self-serving, as in like serving SensorTech or Marcon, or growing by acquisition of buying something that's ready to go in other facets of that blockchain ecosystem.
And
So
we've talked about this before. You've got that great network. It's not as if you're sitting in an office wondering where you're going to find your next investment. You're tapped into a great network where you have access to deals that are going public in the next 3, 4, 6 months and doing a private placement round. So you feel pretty confident that you'll have enough deal flow that you won't know what to do with it.
Yeah, and we'd like IntellaEquity to balance out and get to a higher market cap too. That we're working hard on that too. That's more important than anything else, to tell you honestly. So it's sort of the chicken or the egg. But yeah, talk about network. I mean, before we even closed our transaction, I've had like 4 people, serious people, that have approached. Hey, you're doing this, so what do you think? Would you look at this deal or that deal? And some are related to what we're doing anyways. So sorry about that.
That's all right. Busy guys means phones are ringing. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Well, Alan, look, congratulations. You made the big turn. I think that shows a lot of foresight by you in terms of what's coming down the road. The next 10 years can be driven by technology. And when you're a small cap company, and even though you're very successful with Foxtech, very successful with Marcon, those are capital intensive, heavier grind, more friction. And those are, tough to do when you're small cap and you need constant access to funding and financing.
Yeah, and I was going to throw in that you got to watch Sensor Technologies, SCNS, because we just announced some more leak detection contracts, and with a huge client of ours, it's basically Enbridge, and I could say that, but we haven't put that in a press release. They're the largest pipeline company in North America, which we advertise that all the time. And we have proof of that because in the quarterly reports that we do every quarter, it shows their name as sitting there with a due amount, receivable, what have you. And we should have some more good news close, like very, very in a close period of time.
Well, that's why to end it here, the royalties I really like at the end of the day, because I know they're going to pay off, or just a case of how many of them are going to pay off. But Foxtech is real customers.
Yeah,
it's
great.
Generate revenue. This isn't it's a widget. We have no idea if anyone's going to buy it. It's that $12 million or $12.5 million in royalties. I can't remember the exact number. Isn't gonna amount to anything. It's definitely gonna amount to something, that's for sure. So that's just another feather in the cap.
We've added 2 different products: leak detection and that pressure temperature instrument with fiber Bragg in the nuclear space. We've never been in there. This is our first. We went through phase 1. That's phase 2 of a contract, and there should be multiples of that going down the road on our last press release on Sensor Technologies.
Well, if you're able to pull off the kind of future deals as you did with Foxtech into SensorTech, then your investors are going to be extremely happy people. So congratulations on making the transition, and congratulations on the success of the first deal, and looking forward to others. I'm even looking forward to what's going to have to Marcon in the future, because even though you said, and you're right, you can't put a value on it because of the rules and regulations, unless you have the.
And there's some ideas of regenerating Marcon also with a new business plan, but we'll keep that sort of under the hat till we come out publicly with it. Yeah,
I see value there. So I see value everywhere, and that's why I think IntellaEquity is a fantastic newcomer. That's for sure. So congrats, Alan.
Thank you.
Looking forward to having you soon, because I'm sure you're going to have more and more news to tell us in the coming weeks and months.
For sure.
You've been watching Alan Loam, President and CEO of IntellaEquity. The company trades on the CSE under the stock symbol IEQ. As always, to know more about the company, get to Agoracom, punch in the company's name and stock symbol, take a look at all the information, and post your questions. Alan will be there talking with everybody. He's always been accessible and transparent, and this is how you build a long-term relationship of great shareholders and great management team. So thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a great day, great weekend. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, George.